Marcus Webb had attended exactly 3 interspecies diplomatic functions in his 2-year career as a cultural attaché, and each one had left him feeling like he was performing in a play where everyone else knew the script. Tonight's celebration aboard the Etherian vessel Star Whisper was supposed to be different, casual gathering to commemorate the successful peace accords between humanity and the Etherian consortium. No formal protocols, no rigid ceremonies, just 2 species getting to know each other over food and conversation. He should have known better. The Star Whisper itself was a marvel of Etherian engineering, its corridors lined with what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with soft, bioluminescent light. The main reception hall was a soaring chamber with a transparent ceiling that offered an unobstructed view of the star field beyond. Etherian guests moved through the space with their characteristic fluid grace, their translucent skin shifting through subtle spectrum of colors that Marcus was still learning to interpret. Nervous? Asked Jenna Morrison, the senior attaché who had reluctantly agreed to bring Marcus along as her +1. Terrified, Marcus admitted, adjusting the collar of his dress uniform. At 28, he was the youngest member of humanity's diplomatic corps, and tonight felt like a test he hadn't studied for. I keep waiting to accidentally start an interstellar incident by using the wrong fork. The Etherians don't use forks, Jenna said with a smile. They absorb nutrients through their palms. Try not to overthink everything, Marcus. These are supposed to be the friendly ones. As if on cue, a tall figure approached them with the graceful gait that marked Etherian nobility. Princess Celestine of the 7th House was everything Marcus had heard described, and nothing he had expected. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, her skin held the opalescent quality of mother of pearl, shifting from silver to pale blue as she moved. Her features were sharp and elegant, almost sculptural, but her expression was warm and curious, rather than the cold formality he had anticipated. Attaché Morrison, Princess Celestine said, her voice carrying the musical quality that made Etherian speech sound like poetry, even in translation. I'm so pleased you could join our celebration. The honor is ours, Your Highness, Jenna replied with a respectful bow. May I present Marcus Webb, one of our most promising young diplomats. Marcus felt his cheeks warm as he executed what he hoped was an appropriate bow. Your Highness, thank you for the invitation. Your ship is incredible. Please call me Celestine, she said, her skin shifting to a warmer golden hue that Marcus's cultural briefings had taught him indicated pleasure. And thank you. The Star Whisper has been in my family for 3 generations. She was built for diplomacy as much as travel. What followed was the most engaging conversation Marcus had experienced since arriving in the diplomatic corps. Celestine was brilliant, asking thoughtful questions about human culture while sharing insights about Etherian philosophy that challenged his assumptions about their species. She laughed at his jokes, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, seemed genuinely interested in his perspective on everything from interstellar trade to the novels they both enjoyed reading. I have to admit, Celestine said, as they found themselves alone on one of the ship's observation decks, watching binary stars dance around each other in the distance. I had expected tonight to be far more formal and tedious. Tedious? Marcus accepted the crystal goblet of what Celestine had called Luminier, a traditional Etherian beverage that tasted like liquid starlight and had effects remarkably similar to champagne. You're hosting one of the most important diplomatic celebrations in recent history, which is precisely why I expected it to be tedious, she said with a smile that transformed her entire face. Important events usually are, but this has been refreshing. You're not at all what I expected from human diplomats. What did you expect? Stuffier. More concerned with protocol than conversation. Less. She paused, her skin shifting through several colors as she searched for the right word. Genuine. The Lumine had left Marcus feeling more relaxed than he had in months, and something about the intimate atmosphere of the observation deck made him forget that he was talking to royalty. For what it's worth, you're nothing like what I expected. Either. Oh? And what did you expect? Honestly? Cold, aloof, maybe a little intimidating. The briefings made Etherian royalty sound pretty formidable. Celestin laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. We do cultivate that reputation. It's useful in negotiations. Looking at her now, Marcus could see how the briefings had gotten their impression. Even relaxed and smiling, Celestin carried herself with an inherent authority that spoke of generations of royal breeding. Her features held an otherworldly beauty that was both captivating and slightly overwhelming. But stripped of formal protocol, she was remarkably easy to talk to. The peace accords we signed today will change everything for both our peoples, Marcus observed, watching how the starlight caught the crystalline formations that crowned her head like a living tiara. Though I have to say, I'm curious about something. Ask away. The concessions your delegation made in the final negotiations. They were more generous than they needed to be. Your advisors seemed surprised by some of your suggestions. Celestin sipped her Lumine thoughtfully, her skin shifting to a contemplative violet. Perhaps I see value in building relationships based on mutual benefit rather than extracted advantage. That's a refreshing approach to interstellar diplomacy. It's a refreshing approach to most things, I've found, though I admit I have limited experience with relationships that aren't diplomatic in nature. There was something in her tone that suggested this was more personal admission than political observation. Marcus studied her profile against the starfield, noting how her regal bearing couldn't quite hide what looked like genuine loneliness. Limited experience? The burden of royal birth, she said with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Most potential companions are either terrified of my position or interested only in the political advantages of royal connection. It makes authentic relationships ... challenging. That sounds incredibly isolating. It is. I sometimes wonder what it would be like to be seen simply as myself rather than as Princess Celestin, heir to the 7th house, future leader of the Etherian Consortium. Marcus felt a stab of sympathy for this remarkable woman who wielded the authority of an entire civilization, but apparently struggled to find genuine personal connection. The Lumine had lowered his usual diplomatic filters, enough that he found himself speaking more honestly than protocol typically allowed. For what it's worth, he said, I've enjoyed these conversations precisely because you've been yourself, rather than just a princess. You're intelligent, funny, thoughtful, and surprisingly down to earth for someone who could probably buy and sell entire star systems. Celestin's skin shifted to a warmer gold, and her smile became more genuine. Thank you, Marcus. That means more than you might realize. It's just the truth. Honestly. ... The Lumine and the intimate atmosphere made him bold enough to voice thoughts that would normally remain private. You'd probably make an amazing wife someday. Someone's going to be incredibly lucky. The words hung in the air between them like a live energy discharge. Celestin went completely still, her goblet frozen halfway to her lips, her skin cycling rapidly through colors Marcus had never seen before: silver to deep blue to brilliant white, and back again. The relaxed atmosphere of their conversation evaporated instantly, replaced by something that felt like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Around them, other guests continued their conversations, unaware that something significant had just shifted in the carefully balanced dynamics of interspecies diplomacy. Your Highness, Marcus said quickly, realizing how his casual comment might have sounded. I didn't mean that, as I was just making conversation. I hope I haven't, but... Celestin held up one elegant hand, silencing him with a gesture that commanded absolute attention. Her skin had settled into a deep, luminous blue that seemed to pulse with inner light, and her expression showed the kind of focused intensity that suggested she was processing implications at superhuman speed. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a formal authority that hadn't been present in their entire conversation. "I accept." Marcus stared at her, his mind struggling to process what she had just said. "Accept what, Your Highness?" "Your proposal, Marcus Webb of Earth. I formally accept your offer of soul bonding." "My what?" Marcus felt the universe tilt sideways as he realized the implications of what had just happened. "Your Highness, I wasn't proposing. I was just—" But Celestin had already risen from her seat, moving with the fluid grace that marked Etherian royalty. She raised both hands above her head in a gesture that Marcus didn't recognize, but which immediately caught the attention of every Etherian in the vicinity. "Citizens of the Consortium," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across the observation deck with harmonic overtones that seemed to resonate through the ship's crystal structure itself. "I am pleased to announce my soul bonding to Marcus Webb of Earth. The traditional trial period will commence according to ancient customs." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Etherian guests began producing harmonious tones that seemed to indicate celebration, while human diplomats looked around in confusion and growing alarm. Marcus found himself at the center of a whirlwind of congratulations, formal bows, and increasingly frantic questions from his own delegation. "Marcus," Jenna Morrison appeared at his elbow with the expression of someone dealing with a diplomatic crisis of unprecedented proportions. "What exactly just happened here?" "I honestly have no idea," Marcus replied, watching as Princess Celestin accepted congratulations from her people with the calm satisfaction of someone whose evening had just become infinitely more interesting. "I made a casual comment about her being wife material, and apparently I just accidentally proposed to the princess of the Etherian Consortium." "And she accepted?" "Enthusiastically." Jenna closed her eyes briefly, clearly running through cultural protocols and diplomatic procedures at light speed. "Marcus, we may have a serious problem." The emergency briefing in Marcus's assigned quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel New Geneva felt like a tribunal preparing to pass judgment on his career, his sanity, and quite possibly his life. Ambassador Helena Cross, the silver-haired head of humanity's diplomatic mission, sat across from him with the expression of someone whose carefully orchestrated peace negotiations had just been derailed by forces beyond rational comprehension. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," Ambassador Cross said, her voice carrying the controlled calm of someone suppressing volcanic rage. "During a casual conversation with Princess Celestin, you told her she'd make an amazing wife." "That's correct," Marcus replied, still feeling like he was trapped in someone else's nightmare. "And she immediately interpreted this as a formal soul-bonding proposal according to ancient Etherian law." "Also correct. And you are now legally bound to the heir of the Etherian Consortium's most powerful house, with a 40-day trial period to determine whether this bond becomes permanent." Marcus nodded miserably. "Unfortunately correct." Ambassador Cross rubbed her temples with the slow deliberation of someone developing a migraine of galactic proportions. "Marcus, do you have any idea what you've done? Created an unprecedented diplomatic situation that could either revolutionize human-Etherian relations or completely destroy my career and possibly start an interstellar incident." "That's actually a fairly accurate assessment," said Dr. Patricia Vance, the mission's xenocultural specialist, looking up from her datapad with the haggard expression of someone who had spent the night consuming stimulants and discovering disturbing information. "Ambassador, the situation is far more complex than a simple accidental engagement. Meaning, Etherian soul bonds aren't just personal commitments. They're spiritual contracts that create literal psychic connections between participants. If Marcus completes the bonding process, he and Princess Celestin will share thoughts, emotions, and life force for the rest of their natural lives. Marcus felt his stomach drop as the full implications hit him. Are you telling me I might end up permanently psychically linked to an alien princess because of an offhand compliment? I'm telling you that according to Etherean metaphysics, you've already begun forming that connection. The trial period exists to determine whether both parties can handle the intensity of complete soul bonding. Ambassador Cross leaned forward with the focused intensity of someone trying to contain a crisis. What are the chances Princess Celestine will agree to dissolve this bond? Dr. Vance hesitated. That's what concerns me. Her reaction last night suggested someone pleased with the engagement rather than trapped by it. Etherean royalty don't typically accept soul bond proposals unless they're genuinely interested in the connection. But surely she realizes this was accidental. Etherean culture doesn't distinguish between accidental and intentional when it comes to soul bonds. They believe the universe guides people toward their spiritual partners through seemingly random events. From their perspective, there are no accidents, only destiny revealing itself. The implications of this hung in the air like an undetonated explosive. Marcus found himself wondering if Princess Celestine truly believed he had been guided by cosmic forces to propose to her, and whether she saw their meeting as fate, rather, and diplomatic necessity. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. When Marcus opened the door, he found himself facing an Etherean he didn't recognize, tall and imposing, with skin that held the deep blue coloration that marked advanced age and wisdom among their species. Elaborate crystalline formations crowned his head in patterns that spoke of high rank and ancient authority. "Attach web," the figure said in accented but precise English. "I am Elder Thorn of the High Council. Her Highness Princess Celestine requests your presence for the first bonding assessment." "The first what now?" Marcus asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew. Traditional soul bond protocols require daily shared experiences between bonded parties to establish spiritual compatibility. These sessions are mandatory during the trial period and must be conducted according to ancient customs. Dr. Vance stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "Elder Thorn, given the unusual circumstances of this bonding, perhaps some flexibility in protocol." "Dr. Vance," Elder Thorn interrupted with polite but absolute firmness. "Etherean. Soul bonds are inviolable once accepted in the presence of witnesses." Attach Webb offered his spiritual essence to Her Highness. She accepted that offering as genuine. All subsequent protocols are now mandatory under cosmic law. Even if the proposal was accidental, Ambassador Cross interjected. "Intent matters less than action in matters of the soul," Elder Thorn replied. The attached spoke words of eternal commitment in sacred space, witnessed by both our peoples. Her Highness accepted those words as a true offering of his heart. The bond has therefore begun forming regardless of his conscious intentions. Marcus realized he was trapped not just by alien law, but by the fundamental assumptions of a culture that took spiritual connections far more seriously than human society typically did. "Elder Thorn, what exactly does a bonding assessment involve?" "Shared meditation, collaborative problem-solving, emotional synchronization exercises, and spiritual communion. The purpose is to determine whether both parties can achieve the harmony necessary for permanent soul bonding. And if we can't achieve this harmony?" Elder Thorn's skin shifted to a more sympathetic pale green. "Then the bond dissolves naturally at the end of 40 days, causing significant emotional and spiritual trauma to both parties as their partially merged souls are forcibly separated." "Trauma?" Marcus felt a new wave of panic. What kind of trauma? "The Etherean equivalent of severe depression, lasting approximately 1 solar cycle. Humans, having less developed spiritual sensitivity, typically experience it as a profound sense of loss and emptiness that gradually fades over several months." Marcus stared at the elder, trying to process the fact that his casual compliment had potentially committed him to either permanent psychic bonding or months of supernatural heartbreak. And there's no way to avoid this? The bonding process has already begun, Elder Thorne said gently. Her Highness awaits your presence in the sacred chambers. Attendance is not optional. The walk to Princess Celestine's private chambers gave Marcus time to contemplate how thoroughly his life had been transformed by a single moment of unguarded honesty. 24 hours ago, he had been a junior diplomat on a routine peace mission. Now he was soul-bound to an alien princess and facing 40 days to decide whether he wanted permanent psychic connection or supernatural heartbreak. The Etherean sacred chambers were unlike anything in Marcus's experience. A circular room with walls that seemed to be made of living light, constantly shifting through colors that had no names in human language. The air hummed with harmonic frequencies that made his bones vibrate in strangely pleasant ways, and he could feel something in the atmosphere that his human senses couldn't quite identify, but which felt deeply peaceful. Princess Celestine sat in the center of the room on a cushion that seemed to be woven from solidified starlight, her skin glowing with soft bioluminescence that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She looked up as he entered, and Marcus was surprised to see that her expression held genuine warmth rather than formal politeness. "Marcus," she said, rising with that fluid grace that made every movement look like dance. "I trust you slept well despite the evening's developments, as well as someone can sleep after accidentally getting soul-bound to a princess," he replied, noting that her skin had shifted to a warm golden hue that he was learning indicated pleasure. "Please, sit with me. We have much to discuss." Marcus settled onto a cushion opposite her, surprised when it molded itself to provide perfect comfort. "Your Highness Celestine, I need to be honest about last night. When I said you'd make an amazing wife, I was making casual conversation, not proposing soul bonding. I had no idea my words would be interpreted as a spiritual commitment." Celestine's skin shifted through several contemplative colors before settling on a calm blue. "I understand that human courtship customs are quite different from ours. People separate casual affection from spiritual commitment in ways that seem strange to us. Then you agree that this bond is based on a misunderstanding?" "I agree that you did not consciously intend to offer soul bonding," she said carefully. "However, I also believe that your words came from genuine emotion. You were not mocking me or speaking falsely. You were expressing honest appreciation for my essence as both a woman and a potential life partner." Marcus found himself studying her face, noting the subtle play of emotions across her features. "Celestine, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "In the past day, as you've contemplated the possibility of permanent soul bonding with me, what has been your primary concern?" She was quiet for a long moment, her skin cycling through shades Marcus was beginning to recognize as indicating deep thought, that you might feel trapped or coerced into something you never wanted, that my acceptance of your offer might have forced you into a connection that brings you only duty and resentment. Marcus felt something shift in his chest at her words. "Your primary concern has been for my well-being?" "Yes, because despite the brevity of our acquaintance, I find that I care about your happiness more than I care about the political advantages this bonding might bring my people." "Celestine," Marcus began, then stopped as the full implications of her words hit him. "Are you saying that you genuinely want to explore this bond? That you're not just going through the motions because of cosmic law?" Her skin brightened to a warm amber that seemed to fill the room with gentle light. "Marcus, I want you to understand something important. Last night, when you spoke those words, you gave me something I had never expected to receive, which was a genuine, spontaneous expression of romantic interest from someone who saw me as a woman worth cherishing, rather than a political asset to be acquired. Someone relaxed enough in my presence to speak from the heart without calculating diplomatic implications. Marcus felt his understanding of their situation shift fundamentally. You weren't trapped by my proposal. You were hoping for it. I was delighted by it. For the first time in my adult life, someone had expressed interest in permanent bonding with me because they enjoyed my company and appreciated my individual qualities, not because they wanted access to royal power or political influence. The sincerity in her voice made Marcus realize that his accidental proposal had given Princess Celestine something precious proof that someone could desire her for personal rather than political reasons. But it also raised new questions about what she expected from their 40 days together. What exactly are you hoping will happen during this trial period? He asked. Her skin shifted to a deeper gold that seemed to pulse with inner warmth. I'm hoping that we'll discover whether your spontaneous offer of soul bonding might grow into something real. Whether two people from different worlds might find that their spirits are compatible for permanent unity. And if we discover that we're not compatible, then we honor the cosmic laws, allow the bond to dissolve naturally, and accept whatever emotional consequences follow. But Marcus ... Her eyes held his with an intensity that made his breath catch. What if we discover that we are? By the end of the second week, Marcus had begun to understand why Etherian soul bonding trials lasted 40 days. The daily assessments weren't just formal requirements. They were a comprehensive exploration of whether two minds could harmonize at the deepest possible level. And despite his initial panic, he was beginning to discover that sharing consciousness with Princess Celestine was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Your emotional resonance is strengthening, observed Lady Seraphina, Celestine's chief, advisor and spiritual guide, as she monitored the harmonic crystals that measured their bonding progress. The elderly Etherian's skin held the deep purple coloration that marked advanced age and wisdom, and her expression showed professional satisfaction with their development. The initial resistance patterns are fading. Marcus sat cross-legged on the meditation cushion, his hand linked with Celestine's as they practiced the spiritual exercises that supposedly prepared them for permanent soul bonding. What had started as awkward, forced intimacy was becoming something far more natural and far more unsettling. Resistance patterns? He asked, opening his eyes to find Celestine watching him with an expression of gentle amusement. You're human. Mind initially rejected the concept of shared consciousness, Lady Seraphina explained. Quite normal for your species. Humans prize individual thought above collective experience. But your resistance is diminishing as you grow comfortable with Her Highness's mental presence. That was putting it mildly. Over the past 2 weeks, Marcus had begun to sense Celestine's emotions as whispers at the edge of his awareness. Her contentment during their morning conversations, her curiosity during their collaborative problem-solving sessions, her genuine pleasure in his company during their evening walks through the ship's crystal gardens. It should have felt invasive, but instead it felt like discovering a new sense he hadn't known he possessed. How am I doing with the resistance? Celestine asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Your Highness shows remarkable adaptability to human emotional patterns, Lady Seraphina said with approval. Most Etherians find human minds chaotic and difficult to interpret, but you seem to find Attachweb's thought patterns ... harmonious. The way she said it made Marcus suspect there was more to their compatibility than simple emotional resonance. Is that unusual? Unprecedented, Lady Seraphina admitted. In 3 centuries of recorded soul bondings, I have never seen an Etherian adapt so quickly to an alien consciousness. Most interspecies attempts result in psychological dissonance that makes bonding impossible. Marcus felt a flutter of something that might have been pride or might have been panic. So we're either exceptionally compatible or heading for spectacular failure. The former, I believe, Celestine said softly, her skin shifting to the warm gold that he had learned meant contentment. I find your mind ... comforting. Your thoughts have a directness that I appreciate, and your emotions are refreshingly honest. Refreshingly honest? Etherean nobility learn early to mask their true feelings behind layers of political necessity. But you think and feel exactly what you mean, without deception or hidden agendas. It's remarkably peaceful to share consciousness with someone so genuine. Lady Seraphina made notes on her crystalline tablet. Today's assessment involves collaborative creation. You must work together to shape light crystal into a form that represents your shared understanding of beauty. What followed was 2 hours of the most intimate creative process Marcus had ever experienced. Working with Etherean light crystal required not just technical skill, but emotional harmony. The crystal responded to their combined mental state, shifting and flowing according to their shared aesthetic vision. Marcus found himself thinking about the way starlight caught Celestine's features, while sensing her appreciation for the determined set of his jaw when he concentrated dot. The result was a sculpture unlike anything either culture had produced alone. Flowing, organic form that seemed to capture both human ambition and Etherean grace. It pulsed with soft bioluminescence that shifted between colors, beautiful in ways that neither species could have achieved independently. Remarkable, Lady Seraphina murmured, studying their creation. This shows not just compatibility, but true synthesis. You are not simply tolerating each other's differences. You are creating something new from them. Later, as they walked through the ship's observation deck, Marcus found himself reflecting on how much had changed since that first night. The formal awkwardness had faded, replaced by easy conversation and comfortable silences. Celestine had shown him Etherean poetry that shifted meaning based on the reader's emotional state, while he had introduced her to human music that made her skin shimmer with patterns he was learning to read as joy. Jackson thinks I'm losing my mind, Marcus sighed, referring to his friend back on the human ship. He can't understand why I'm not fighting harder to get out of this. Are you fighting to get out of this? Celestine asked, her tone carefully neutral, but her skin betraying traces of concern. Marcus considered the question seriously. 3 weeks ago, he would have said yes without hesitation. Now the answer was more complicated. I'm trying to figure out what I actually want versus what I think I should want. And what do you think you should want? To return to my normal life. To avoid permanent psychic bonding with someone I barely know. To not complicate interspecies relations with my personal decisions. He paused, watching her reflection in the transparent walls. But what I actually want is getting harder to deny. Celestine stopped walking, turning to face him with an intensity that made her skin brighten. What do you actually want, Marcus? The honesty that had gotten him into this situation compelled him to answer truthfully. More time with you. More conversations like the ones we've been having. More of whatever this is. It's been growing between us. He met her gaze directly. I want to see where this connection leads, even if it terrifies me. Her skin blazed with warm light, and for a moment, Marcus could feel her emotions as clearly as his own relief, joy, and something deeper that might have been love beginning to take root. I was afraid you were only going through the motions out of duty, she admitted. That you saw the bonding process as something to endure rather than explore. 3 weeks ago, I would have. But spending time with you, sharing thoughts and emotions, creating things together. Marcus stepped closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. Celestine, I think I'm falling for you. Not because of cosmic law or diplomatic necessity, but because you're extraordinary, and I can't imagine my life without these daily conversations. She reached for his hand, and the moment their skin touched, Marcus felt a surge of shared emotion. That left him breathless. Through their developing bond, he could sense her complete honesty, her growing love for him, her amazement at finding someone who appreciated her individual qualities, her hope that what they were building might last. Marcus, she said softly, I need to tell you something important. What? The soul bonding process isn't just about compatibility. It's about choice. Even if we achieve perfect harmony, the bond only becomes permanent if both parties consciously choose to complete it on the 40th day. Meaning? Meaning that no matter how well we work together, no matter how much we care for each other, we still have to actively decide whether we want to spend our lives psychically linked. Her skin shifted to deeper gold. I wanted you to know that. What we're building here isn't inevitable. It's something we're choosing, day by day. Marcus felt the weight of that revelation settle over him. In less than 3 weeks, he would have to make a decision that would fundamentally alter the course of his life. Bond permanently with an alien princess, sharing thoughts and emotions for the rest of their natural lives, or return to his old existence knowing that he had walked away from something extraordinary. What happens if only one of us chooses to complete the bond? Celestine's skin dimmed slightly. The partial bond dissolves, causing the emotional trauma Elder Thorne described. The party who chose completion experiences it more severely. So if you want to complete the bond and I don't, you suffer more than I do? Yes, and if you choose completion but I don't, you bear the greater burden. Marcus studied her face, noting the vulnerability in her expression. Celestine, are you already sure of your choice? She was quiet for a long moment, her skin cycling. Through colors he was learning to interpret as deep contemplation. Finally, she met his eyes with complete honesty. I am falling in love with you, Marcus Webb. Not with the idea of you. Not with the diplomatic advantages you might bring, but with your mind, your humor, your genuine kindness, and the way you make me feel like a woman worth choosing rather than a princess worth acquiring. Her skin brightened with determination. If you ask me today whether I want to complete the soul bond, my answer would be yes without hesitation. And if I'm not ready to make that choice, then I hope the remaining weeks will help you find clarity. But Marcus ... She stepped closer, and he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I want you to know that loving you isn't conditional on your choice. Whether we complete the bond or not, these weeks with you have been the most genuine connection I've ever experienced. Marcus felt something profound shift in his chest as he realized that Princess Celestine, brilliant, powerful, extraordinarily beautiful, was offering him her heart without demanding his in return. She was prepared to risk the supernatural heartbreak of incomplete bonding for the chance to love him freely. Celestine, he said, reaching up to touch her face, marveling at how her skin felt like warm silk beneath his fingers. I can't promise I'll be ready in 3 weeks, but I can promise that I'll spend every day until then trying to figure out if I'm brave enough to choose the most terrifying and wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. She smiled, her skin blazing with joy, and leaned into his touch. That's all I can ask for. As they stood there in the starlight, hands linked and emotions intertwining through their developing bond, Marcus realized that his accidental proposal had led him to something he had never expected to find: a love that transcended species, culture, and the very nature of individual consciousness. The question was whether he would be brave enough to choose it.